Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commanders Core studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I will be highlighting for you some hidden gem commanders. Commanders that are either underrated, forgotten about, or ones that you maybe never have even heard of before. Some ones that you need to hear about now. Let's jump into it. First up, starting off at rank 901 on EDH Rec. That's right, the 901st most popular commander. Not very popular at all. Sorry, the reality chip. Yeah, who knew a computer chip would not be one of the most popular commanders out there? That being said, this legendary artifact equipment jellyfish, because yeah, that's a thing, is a really cool and dynamic commander. A 0/4 that costs 1 and a blue that says you may look at the top card of your library anytime. Now, just with that line of text, I am already interested because this unlocks a different aspect of Magic. It gives you a different avenue to think and do things because knowing what the top of your library is can be crucial in so many situations, even if it's just planning ahead and being like, oh, okay, I'm going to be drawing into this next turn. Or, oh, maybe I should cast a draw spell to get it now. Or, oh, okay, I got to plan around getting that because like, oh, I got to know what I'm going to be getting into. That being said, you can also utilize other ways to manipulate your library so that you can get down to the cards that you need. And also, of course, if you do attach this to a creature, you can play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. So again, that unlocks basically your library's a second hand, which is absolutely massive. And of course, I should have said it has Reconfigure for 2 and a blue. Basically, it's an equipment in that way. So, when this is not attached, we can still get value out of cards like, say, Codex Shredder. An amazing card for a commander like this. One that is pretty inconspicuous for a lot of decks out. It's like, oh yeah, you just kind of not really utilize it. Like, why would you utilize this card in many decks out there? Unless you're trying to mill players or yourself or get things back in your graveyard. But with this commander, it's basically like curated card draw in a way. Artifact for a single mana, tap target player mills a card, pay 5, tap, sacrifice it, bring target card back from your graveyard to your hand. This card is huge at literally just picking and choosing what you want off the top of your library. If you got something on top of your library, let's say you've got all the lands you can need in play, right? And you're like, oh, top library? Oh, it's an island. Okay, I don't need that. Get rid of it. Get something else on top of your library so you can draw into that. Or again, if reality chip is attached to a creature, you can play that card then. Again, your library is basically an extension of your hand. And when you've got cards like Codex Shredder, and there's other ones out there, Gold Caller's Bell, I think, is one too. There's a lot of ones out there. Pixis of Pandemonium. I'm just going to keep going. Anyways, being able to manipulate the top of your library very easily basically becomes extra card selection, which turns into card advantage in some ways. Next up, Sage of the Beyond gives you a different avenue to take advantage of this commander as well. A 5/5 Spirit Giant with flying for 7 mana, but you can foretell it for just 5 mana. Spells you cast from anywhere other than your hand cost 2 less to cast. Now, this counts a lot of things. First of all, it counts your commander, so do keep that in mind. It also counts, well, I guess you'd probably play this after commander, but if your commander gets dealt with, there you go. But also it counts, of course, your graveyard, and yes, the top of your library. So now when you're playing things off the top of your library, you're getting a giant amount of reduction for them, so definitely take advantage of things like that. And also take advantage of cards like See the Truth. A card like this actually benefits you when you are casting it from not your hand. Search for 2 mana in blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of those cards in your hand, the rest of the bottom of your library in any order. This spell is cast from anywhere other than your hand, which of course the top of your library is. Put each of those cards in your hand instead. Basically, draw 3 for 2 mana off the top. That can be quite great. So yeah, you can take advantage of a lot of unique things with the reality chip. And again, I like commanders that give you that different access, that different angle for a commander game where it's not just, not just, draw. Okay, yeah, play my cards. This is now, okay, top of my library is an extension of my hand in some ways. I can manipulate that. I can pick and choose what I'm getting. And of course, I can take advantage of certain effects that usually I wouldn't be able to take advantage of. It's a very cool, dynamic commander. And yes, it is the only, to my knowledge, legendary artifact creature equipment jellyfish. So it's quite unique in that way too. Make sure you check this one out. Next up, though, going down even further in popularity, rank 904, Shuun the Silent Tempest, a 3/2 human monk with prowess for 3 mana in blue, but it is a Jeskai commander because it says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay Boros. If you do, target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So, here's the thing. yeah, you can choose to give other creatures double strike. In fact, actually, you could choose to give opponents' creatures double strike just for fun, on their turn. If you're like, oh, that player's attacking that other player, they can take that player out if I give a double strike. Cast an instant and double strike and gone. Sure, you could politic with this, but more so, you're just gonna one punch man. Absolutely. This is a commander where, again, the more non-creature spells you cast, the larger this gets. And of course, some of those non-creature spells will pump this too. And by giving it double strike, commander damage is quite the thing. Being able to get this through, yeah, we need ways to get it through, but we've got plenty of those and plenty of great ones like, say, Distortion Strike. Sorcery, single blue mana. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It can't be blocked this turn. It also has Rebound, so you recast it for free next turn. So getting those free spells to cast can be great. So you're just like, oh yeah, I play it once. For 1 mana, I get 2 prowess triggers out of it. 2 +1/+0s and unblockability. A great way to take a player out this combat and maybe next combat as well. And again, unblockability is massive for this commander, ensuring you can get through and take players out in absolutely no time. Of course, we also have cards like Titan Strength. Instant for a single red mana. Target creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn. Scry 1. So again, some card selection there, which is nice with that Scry 1. But also, of course, +3/+1, which again, with all these spells, just keep in mind, with all the non-creature spells, it's an extra +1/+1 every single time. So it's basically +4/+2. Being able to say, okay, my commander now has 7 power. Double strike, that's 14 damage. Yeah, that can go incredibly quickly. You can see even just with one spell, you can make your commander into an unstoppable force. And it doesn't take too much to get to 11 power, which of course turns your commander into a one-shot KO with double strike. Cards like Unleash Fury are huge for that. Instant for 2 mana in red. Double the power to our creature until end of turn. So yeah, get a couple of boost effects on your commander, and all of a sudden, double it up. Take your opponents out with that double strike. So yeah, if you've been looking for a commander that can take opponents out in absolutely no time in spectacular fashion and just burninate opponents to the ground with a fist, do so with Shuun the Silent Tempest, again ranked 904. Moving on, an oldie but a goodie, all the way back from what Lorwyn block we got Sig River Cutthroat at 906 in the rankings, a 1/3 Merfolk Rogue for 2 mana in Dimir. At the end of the turn, at the end of every turn, I should say. Again, make sure you check out the actual Oracle text on this and what it means. If an opponent lost 3 or more life each turn, this turn, you draw a card. So essentially, with this one, again, on every single end step, this is checking, and if any opponent lost 3 more life, no matter what that means, again, if it was 2 players, attacking each other or whatnot, and them just losing life in that way, the player used a shock land and maybe paid life in some other way, whatever it is and players are losing life, or if maybe you're causing that, because of course you are drawing cards. So with each trip around the table, you've got the potential to draw 4 cards from this 2-mana commander, which is a ton of card advantage. And of course, like I mentioned, there are plenty of ways for you to set yourself up to ensure that that happens more often than not. First up, Painful Quandary. A card like this can be absolutely brutal. Enchantment for 5 mana in black. Whenever opponent casts a spell, they lose 5 life unless they discard a card. Discarding a card is a huge cost, and yeah, this is truly a card that, well, is named pretty aptly. Yeah, it is very painful for them to decide, oh, okay, do I get card disadvantage every single time I'm casting a spell? Or do I choose to lose some life, and it's a good chunk of life? And when I do that, now the player who's got Sig is going to be drawing a card. So again, either card disadvantage for them, or card advantage for you with their life loss. Next up, Underworld Dreams. Yeah, it's a good card. Enchant for 3 mana in black. Whenever the opponent draws a card, 1 damage to them. This is so punishing for a lot of commander players out there. I mean, it already starts you off on the right foot, right? For this kind of a commander. Yeah, here you go. You draw your card for turn. Okay, damage to you. We're already 1/3 of the way there, and let's say you play a Shockland. Now we're there, and I get to draw that card. Or, of course, if they play any kind of a draw spell to draw, 2 more cards on their turn or 3 cards on anyone else's turn, you are getting there with that. Also, a card like Vile Consumption. Yeah, this thing is brutal. All the way back from, Invasion? Enchant for 3 mana in Dimir. All creatures have at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature unless you pay 1 life. So, yeah, you either can keep your creatures in play, which many players want to do, and 1 life per creature is not too big of a deal depending on the deck. I mean, like for a token deck where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going super wide. It's like, oh no, 10 life, maybe not be able to pay that. But yeah, for most players out there, you're probably going to be getting, 3 life lost on that, and you're going to be able to draw a card, essentially, with each player's turn, which can be quite great. So again, a commander that benefits you just for being in play. Literally, if you didn't do anything throughout the game, you would be drawing cards with this as well. And of course, if you go to combat, you've got ways to get through certain creatures. Of course, you can get your own card drawn on your turn with that as well. That being said, with the potential of drawing 4 cards with each tripper on the table for a 2-mana commander in some pretty good colors to do so, you can do a lot of spicy things with Sig, River Cutthroat, 906 rank right now. Next up, Cole the Forge Master, rank 911, a 2/2 Dwarf Warrior for 2 mana in Boros. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return to its owner's hand. Creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get ++1. Now, that is nice about pumping those creature tokens, and of course you can build around that, but it is an incredibly powerful thing to say, hey, non-token creatures, when you die, I get you back, as long as I've got you enchanted or equipped, and you've got plenty of great ways to do that. So you've got ways to essentially say, you know what? You're not going anywhere. You come right back or get extra value out of you. And of course, you can go in a couple different directions with this. You can go like super wide value of, hey, get a bunch of equipment in play that are easy to equip. Get a bunch of cool creatures. Maybe they have some great ETBs or some great LTBs and take advantage of those. You can also go combo if you want to go with this one. Or sure, you can go creature tokens. See, a lot of cool directions that you can go with this one. And some things that I should point out, like, hey, Impulsive Pilferer. It's a decent card. It's not going to see play in a ton of decks, but for this commander, it's amazing. A 1/1 Goblin Pirate for a single red mana. When it dies, make a treasure token. And you can also encore it, but we're not going to be doing that with this commander because we're going to be getting this in play, attaching, say, an equipment to it, and then maybe having it die. And when it dies, we get a mana. We get a treasure out of it, and then we just get it back in our hand. And then we get it back in play, and get it back in our hand, and get it back in play, and get it back in our hand, because we've got a card like Sigh of the Shinobi. Equipment for a single mana, equip 2. Creature gets +1/+1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, you may attach Sigh of the Shinobi to it. So again, we get any creature into play. This auto attaches, which is amazing for a commander like this. Now, of course, there's other ways, like Pure Steel Paladin or whatever, to have free attaches, which is great. That being said, having equipment that just does it for you is huge. Doesn't really matter what the equipment does, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, okay, cool. My Impulsive Pilferer, if it dies, cool, I get a treasure, and it comes right back to my hand, and I can use that treasure to pay for it if I really want to, and you can obviously loop with things like that, or just be like, you know what? I'd like to convert my mana into treasures this turn so that next turn I've got a lot of mana to do so. But yes, of course, there are combo routes that you can go with, like a free sacrifice out like Goblin Bombardment. Sacrifice a creature, 1 damage to our creature player, a great enchantment for 2 mana in red. Yes, you can definitely go infinite with something like this as well. So there is that direction, that option for you. And of course, Impulsive Pilferer is a really cool card that can be free in a weird way. There's also, of course, free cards like Ornithopter or Rograk, essentially, where you can just, okay, I just played for 0. Okay, I equip something for free. Okay, I sacrifice it. Okay, I do it again and again and again and again. There's a lot of different directions you can go with this one, and some really powerful things. Players should not be underrating Cole the Forge Master and the cool builds that you can have around it. Rank 911. Next up, an oldie but a goodie, all the way back from 2006, I believe if I'm reading that right. Rank 914, Endrixar Master Breeder. A 2/2 human wizard for 5 mana in black. Whenever you play a creature spell, put X 1/1 black through all creature tokens into play where X that spell's converted mana cost. When you control 7 worth rolls, sacrifice Endrixar Master Breeder. You know a card is a bit older when you see the words play and also converted mana cost instead of cast and mana value. That being said, this is a really cool older commander that, you can do a lot of awesome things with, and the amount of creature tokens that you can make this one can be insane, and it's just really fun having, a commander that gives you a lot of value, but also has a, hey, you know what, slight limitation on it. If I get 7 or more, I'm in trouble, so I kind of need to, not have 7 or more in play. So what I'm going to be doing with that is maybe utilizing cards like Viserys here. Viserys here is an incredible card, a 1/1 vampire wizard for a single black mana, sacrifice a creature, scry 1. So all of a sudden you're just like, you know what? I've got 6 rolls in play. I want to cast a creature spell of some sort. Maybe let's sacrifice some of those down, scry some, get some cards, off the top of my library that I don't want anymore, and utilize this to fantastic fashion to be able to play other cards. So again, you're at 6. Cool. All right. You know what? I've got a creature spell in my hand that costs 3. All right, I'm going to sacrifice 3. So I can get 3, and then I'll play that, and I get 3 more. Cool. And get extra benefits when you are sacrificing them. Maybe some Blood Artist triggers, or maybe something like Smothering Abomination. Yeah. 4/3 Eldrazi for 4 mana in black, but it's got Devoid, which does not matter almost ever. Flying at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a card. So again, a command that's actually encouraging you to sacrifice creatures. Like, yeah, we've got too many Thralls around here. It's getting ridiculous. Please sacrifice some for me. And you're like, sure, I'll draw a card. But again, with that Viserys here, it's like, okay, cool. Whenever I play a creature spell, essentially, I make X Thralls based on the mana value, and now I can just sacrifice that much and just draw that many cards. So it's basically like, with this combination of cards, a free sacrifice outlet, plus this, plus your commander, it's, hey, you cast a creature spell, draw cards equal to its mana value. That is pretty crazy. And of course, speaking of crazy, there are like really janky cards you can really take advantage of, like Endless Cockroaches, a really cool, incredibly janky card, a 1/1 insect for 3 mana in black. When it dies, bring it back to its owner's hand. How annoying. I mean, cockroach is annoying, right? But yes, being able to just get this in play, get 3 Thralls, sacrifice it, get value out of that. It comes back to your hand, replay, get 3 more Thralls. It's basically just creature token production, which again gives you so much value with the Aristocrat style strategy around this. Being able to drain opponents, draw cards, do whatever you need to do when it comes to sacrificing creatures, or like Dictate of Erebos, wipe out your opponent's armies too. Yeah, Endrixar, again, an oldie but a goodie. Simple yet effective, with some nuance to it as well, and how you can really play it and really work with it. A really cool commander, rank 914. Make sure you check it out. Moving on to rank 23, we've got Tasia Roochi Ascendant. This is a commander that I have definitely seen do some amazing and crazy things. I love it. Snake Monk for 2/3, Snake Monk for 3 mana, I should say. Reveal your hand. If you've got 7 or more lands in your hand, flip it, and it flips over into, clicking button, Society's Essence. Whenever a land you control is tapped for mana, add 1 mana of that type to your mana pool for each other land you control with the same name. It's a legendary enchantment. So, it is an incredibly unique commander, one that's like, you know what, let's play a little mini game first to start things off, alright? The game is called I Get 7 Lands in My Hand, which of course is a risky proposition in some ways because you need to have a lot of lands in the deck and a lot of ways to get those lands, but once you flip this, that is huge amounts of value. Literally, again, if you just have all forests in your deck, which you're probably going to do, all of a sudden you've got, okay, maybe let's say 7 forests in play. Now they each tap for 7 mana. Green decks, green commander players, eat your hearts out. Tapping for 49 mana in total without any, like, I mean, this is kind of like a doubler or whatever, like a, I mean, exponential doubler in a way, exponential, whatever growth. It is absolutely absurd the amounts of mana that you can make. And again, you just play 1 more land. Congratulations. Now it's 8 times 8, 64. Goodness gracious, Seek the Horizon. Cards that are so not used in the vast majority of Commander games are amazing with this one. Cards that maybe when you're like a, beginner, Magic player like I was back in the day, I'm like, I don't understand, why Rampant Growth is better than, say, a card like this. Like, I get 3 lands versus 1. Seek the Horizon. Sorcery for 4 mana in green. Search library to 3 basic land cards. Reveal them, put in your hand, then shuffle your library. Yes, making sure that you can hit your land drops is nice, but it's not ramping you because it's not getting you ahead on lands. That being said, the name of the game of this commander is get the lands in my hand so I can flip it. So again, it's kind of the opposite kind of thought process to what many green decks are, which are get all the lands in play as quickly as possible. This is like get all the cards in your hand as quickly as possible. Hydra Broodmaster, cards like this can be amazing for this commander, just sitting there waiting. A 7/7 Hydra for 6 mana, but that's not all. Play XX in a green monstrosity X, becomes monstrous, create XXX green Hydra creature tokens. Yeah, mana dumps like this can be huge where you're just like, okay, cool, I've got a nice threat in the board, but once I flip my commander, all of a sudden, again, I'm tapping for, say, again, like 49 mana, whatever that is, if you have 7 lands in play. And this is like, okay, yeah, cool. I'll dump, 24 into each of those X's if I did my math correctly, making 24s. That's gonna be game. Goodbye, opponent. Speaking of game, Kamal, Fist of Krosa. One of the best cards in combination with this commander once you get it flipped, because there's kind of nothing your opponents can do to stop you at this point. A 4/3 Human Druid for 6 mana in green. I mean, of course, they can stop in some ways, but still. Okay, some ways don't work anymore because you've got this little ability that's single green mana. Target land becomes a 1/1 creature till turn still a land. Now, that might not seem like that big of a deal, But believe me, it is, especially when you've got 49 plus mana to work with. Your opponents cannot cast wrath spells. They cannot do it, because if they do, all their lands are gone and it's their fault. Literally, they cast the Wrath of God and you're like, you sure you want to do that? You sure you want to do that? Yeah, I like the Wrath of God. Okay, all your lands are 1/1s now. I just tap my 1 land, add 7 mana to my mana pool, and all your lands are 1/1s. And then all your lands are 1/1s, and all your lands are 1/1s. You can hold the entire table hostage with this card, and it also, of course, can win you the game on your turn quite easily when you've got so much mana, because you can also utilize in a repeatable overrun effect 2 green, green, green. Creature control, get +3/+3, gain trample until end of turn. So yeah, on your turn when you want to finish opponents off, turn some lands into creatures, or just pump all the other creatures that you're making with the Hydra Broodmaster or whatnot, and just demolish your opponents. So yes, this is protection. This is a finisher. It's an amazing card with this kind of a commander. And again, these kind of mana dumps that might not see a lot of play in other decks are amazing with this one, because the absurd amounts of mana you can get. Roochi Ascendant / Size Essence, a really cool, really unique commander. Again, changes into kind of like a mini game to start off the game and then flips it over into ridiculousness. Absolutely love it. Rank 923. Moving on, rank 929, we've got Chromium the Mutable. Now, there are, certain directions that you could take this commander. You could go, cool, yeah, like, Esper Dragons if you want. You could go Voltron with this. Or, I'm going to give you a different direction to consider with this one that isn't often played with it. A 7/7 Elder Dragon with Flash for 7 mana in Esper. This spell can't be countered flying. Discard a card until end of turn, becomes a human with base power. Novice 1/1, loses all abilities, gains hexproof, can't be blocked this turn. This is a commander that, again, yeah, it's a pretty cool commander where you could just kind of go like control and also win the game by hitting 3 times, or probably less if you have double strike type effects. You can still utilize that. But also, and this might be overlooked a little bit, this is a free discard outlet. And there are only so many commanders out there, not many at all, that are literally free discard outlets. Ones that just say, yeah, you can just discard a card, and that's it. This is one that also protects itself when you're doing so. And when it comes to discarding cards, many players might not want to do that, but it is something that can be incredibly valuable with the right build around it. You can do some really cool things with a free discard outlet. For example, Archfiend of Ifnir, a 5/4 demon with flying for 5 mana in black. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each of your opponent's creatures, and you could cycle away for 2. But I recommend getting this one into play. Yeah, because again, literally now with this in play, plus your commander, plus a full grip, good luck to your opponents, because they're going to be like, do I play this creature onto the board? Because if I do, it might just get taken out by my opponent, who can just discard cards whenever they need to take my creatures, to take my army and my opponent's armies out. Gross. And of course, with this, again, you can take advantage of certain cards like, well, okay, Windfall. Let's just go with this. Sorcery for 3 mana in blue. Each player discards their hand and draw cards. Either Gray Summer cards a player discard this way. Basically, just cycle through your hand and be like, you know what? I actually don't need these cards. I don't like these cards. These cards can go away. I can get value out of them again by discarding them from my commander. Archfiend of Ifnir will help me get value out of them in that way. Cure to Mystery is another way to do that too. Drake Haven, some cards like that essentially. But then be like, you know what? Let's just replace them. That opponent over there has got 7 cards in hand anyways. Let's go back up to 7 myself. Tales of the Ancestors, again, a way to kind of like cycle through your hand in a way. Source for 4 mana in blue. Each player with fewer cards in hand, the player with the most cards in hand draws cards equal to the difference. You can foretell this as well. Being able to be like, you know what? I don't need these cards. It's kind of like, replacing them in a way, like a mini wheel for you. Shadow of the Grave, though, can be like, you know what? Instead of that, let's just keep those cards too. Instant for 2 mana in black. Return to your hand all cards in your graveyard that you cycled or discarded this turn. You can do some really cool things. Again, with this, a kind of a commander that gives you a different avenue, gives you a way to just freely discard cards, which players, again, might just not want to do most of the time, but now giving you those ways to get value out of it, giving you unique cards you can work with, like, say, Bag of Holding. Artifact for 1, whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard, pay 2 tap, draw a card, discard a card, pay 4 tap, sacrifice it, return all cards exile with it to their owner's hand. So being able to just be like, you know what? Let's store these cards up for later. Let's wheel. Let's do something else. Let's get a full grip again, and then all of a sudden get those cards back. Yeah, you get a lot of value again out of a commander like this, while still also being like, you know what? I will have some double strike type effects in there. I will have ways to finish opponents off with this too. And of course, I can protect it while I am doing so. So again, a commander that has a different avenue that you might not have thought about. Chromium the Mutable, rank 929. Moving on to rank 930, we've got Tasia, Dig Site Mentor, a 4/3 Human Artificer for 4 mana in Bant. Creatures control have Vigilance and tap Surveil 1. That is already huge. We'll get back to that in a second, though. Pay 2, green, green, white, white, blue, blue. Exile it from your graveyard. Return any number of target artifact cards with total mana value 10 or less from your graveyard of the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Now, you can take this commander in a couple different directions. I mean, you could just go like, all right, you know what, let's get down a lot of giant artifacts in my graveyard, or a lot of cool artifacts in my graveyard, and then, yeah, get my commander in my graveyard, exile it out, and all of a sudden, cheat all those things into play. Total mana value of 10 or less, you can do some really cool things with that still. That being said, another direction is literally just, hey, you know what? We've got some creatures. Let's find some cool ways to take advantage of being able to tap them to Surveil 1. Some great card selection for you that can fill your graveyard and, again, utilize it in some really cool ways. That being said, there are creatures out there like Amara Soul the Accord, a 2/2 Elf Cleric for 2 mana in Selesnya. Whenever he comes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier creature with lifelink. So now this commander basically reads, hey, okay, whenever I want, I can just tap, Surveil 1, and make a 1/1. Which then, of course, can, well, I mean, not right away, unless you've got a Haste Enabler in play, but Concordant Crossroads is expensive. Then you can later tap that one to help you Surveil as well. So this is basically a generator of value for you. Next up, speaking of value, Wily Duke at Hero, a 4/2 Human Ranger of Vigilance for 3 mana in Selesnya. Whenever it becomes tap, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Being able to gain life, that's quite nice. You get some synergies with that too. But yeah, just basically, okay, yeah, tap, draw a card, Surveil 1. What's not to love about that? Scare Tiller. Yeah, this card, very janky, very cool. 1/4 Scarecrow for 4 mana. When it becomes tapped, choose 1. They put a land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped, or return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Again, with all this surveilling, you're bound to get a lot of lands into your graveyard, and when you do, you can get them right back out into play with something like this. That can be absolutely huge. And of course, you are in a couple of colors that have great untap effects. Actually, all 3 of these probably the best untap effects out of everything when it comes to creatures. Village Bellringer, very simple, very effective. 1/4 Human Scout with Flash for 3 mana. And enters the battlefield, untap all creatures you control. So again, you get this army out, you tap them for value, you surveil a ton, and all of a sudden you play this and you do it again. And maybe you've got ways to blink it, I don't know. You got some cool things that you can do with it as well, but being able to just get extra value out of your entire team is huge. And of course, again, you got ways to do that in green, ways to do it in blue, ways to do it in white, ways to untap your whole army, and of course, ways to take advantage of surveilling even further. Enhanced Surveillance, enchantment for 2 mana in blue. You may look at 2 additional cards each time you surveil, exile it, shuffle your graveyard in your library. That is so much extra value. Again, instead of surveilling 1, it's basically surveil 3, which is huge. And sure, shuffling is quite nice to make sure you don't actually lose the game when you need to. Anyways, Tasia, Dig Site Mentor is a really cool commander, again, that gives you a different avenue for, again, creatures being like, you know what? Creatures that actually just want to be tapped here, there, or everywhere, I am able to do so with an ability that gets me extra value. And sure, if I've got some artifacts, I can take advantage of those out of the graveyard as well, or I can build entirely around that too. A really cool, really unique commander, rank 930 right now. Next up, rank 937. One of the strangest and most unique commanders of all time, Grothama All-Devouring, a 10/8 worm for 5 mana in green. Other creatures have, when this creature attacks, you may have it fight Grothama All-Devouring. When it leaves the battlefield, each player draws cards equal to the amount of damage dealt to Grothama this turn by sources they controlled. Again, it basically turns Game of Magic into like a mini game in a way where it's like, okay, there's like the end boss over there. It's this giant worm that I control. Attack it if you want. Okay, cool. Again, like it changes the rules of Magic where, again, you can't attack creatures in Magic unlike certain other TCGs, but in Magic now it's like, you know what? This one you can. You're like, hey, we should probably go hit that worm. Yeah, that'll be fun. So yeah, being able to just essentially say, hey, opponents, come at me if you want. But more so being able to take advantage of you hitting your own creature, which is just kind of absurd in Magic. It's just like you've got 2 people arguing on your team and like, oh, you know what? You two just fight it out. Okay, here you go. Broodhatch Nantuko really wants to, well, I mean, doesn't want to fight, but when it does, it helps you out a lot. A 1/1 Insect Druid for 2 mana in green. Dealt damage, you may create that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens. So again, for 2 mana, you are making, 10, because you can fight your own creature, which is just absurd. Stuffy Doll, another really fun way to take advantage of this too. 0/1 as it enters, choose a player. It's indestructible. Whenever it's dealt damage, deals that much damage to each chosen player. You can also tap it to ping itself. But yeah, being able to be like, okay, I pick that player over there that right now is getting on my nerves or is taking over the game. And now all of a sudden, every single time I attack with Stuffy Doll, I'm going to be fighting my own Grothama with it. It's going to take 10 damage, and then that player takes 10 damage. So all of a sudden, you're just dishing out so much damage to your opponents throughout the game with this. Next up, Predator Ooze. Build up those counters. A 1/1 indestructible ooze. Attacks, put a counter on it. Whenever a creature dealt damage by it this turn dies, put a counter on it. Being able to just say, you know what, indestructible creatures, they're quite cool. Keep swinging at Grothama, keep growing this throughout the game, and of course, take advantage of drawing those cards with Grothama, because you can utilize cards like Teamer Sabertooth, a 4/3 cat for 4 mana in green, pay 1 8 green. You may bounce into the creature control back to its owner's hand. If you do, Teamer Sabertooth gains indestructible on turn. So being able to actually just, again, hit your own Grothama and say, you know what, I dealt some damage to you. Maybe I didn't finish you off, but I'll bounce you back to my hand and draw 7 cards so I can replay you. Quite nice. And of course, there's going to be times where it's worth taking your Grothama out. Absolutely. It's going to be completely fine with that, especially when you have cards like Traverse the Outlands. Storage for 5 mana in green. Search library for it to X basic land cards, X the Grace Power among creatures you control. And then all of a sudden you put those cards in the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Basically, with Grothama, this is a 5 mana, go ramp 10 spell. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, you've got mana to recast Grothama after you keep taking it out again and again and again and again. This is basically a card draw engine for you that also has, again, really weird dynamics to it with cards like Stuffy Doll and Broodhatch Nantuko. You can do some really cool, interesting, and awesome things with this. Unlike so many other green commanders out there, it is a, I mean, I'm not saying they're not unique, but this is a very unique one that stands out among all commanders just in how it changes the game. Rank 937 right now. And finally, rank 947, we've got Rakdos the Show Stopper. And you should stop the show right now to pay attention to this one, because this is a really cool, really unique commander that, yeah, some players, again, I personally am not a tribal player. I typically don't play tribal decks. That being said, this is one where it's like, you know what? You can do some pretty cool things with this one, and you don't even have to go tribal for it to be effective. It's a 6/6 demon with Flample that costs 6 mana in Rakdos. Whenever it enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp. Destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. This is a sometimes board wipe in the command zone, basically. This, like, I don't know who's going to get taken out, but yeah, some will. Half of them, most likely. And essentially, again, it's never going to be demons, devils, or imps. So if you want to go tribal in any of those 3, or all those 3, or 2 of those 3, whatever you want to do, go for it. That being said, again, yeah, it's on an ETB, but there's no cast trigger requirement. Meaning, hey, you know what? If you die and you come back, well, there you go. Feign Death type effects. You might not have blink effects in these 2 colors, but Feign Death you do have. Okay, Conjurer's Closet, sure, yes, you do have that. That being said, the majority of the cards are in, you know, Azorius colors when it comes to blink. Instant for a single black mana, though. Until end of turn, target creature gains, this creature dies. Turn to the battlefield, tap does those control, they counter on it. Any of these type of effects, there's so many Feign Death type effects these days. All of these work. Again, 1 mana basically, wipe the board again if your commander dies. And all of a sudden, yeah, maybe I'll build into that some things like Yahenni, Undying Partisan. Again, not a demon, devil, or imp, an Aetherborn Vampire. A 2/2, a hasty creature for 3 mana in black. Whenever a creature opponent controls dies, you get a counter on it. Sacrifice the creature, gains indestructible until end of turn. So a card that can actually survive your commander's own wrath, even if the coin flip comes up the wrong way for you. Sacrifice your commander, that Feign Death type effect on it, it comes back, it wipes the board again, and this becomes absolutely massive. Also, sure, you can also build in some devils as well, imps and demons too if you want. A 4/4 flying for 5 mana in Rakdos, Raphael, Fiendish Savior, Demon Noble, Devil Noble I should say. Other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control +1 have lifelink, so that's nice. Again, making your commander into a 3-shot KO and giving you lifelink is lovely. Beginning of each end step, if a creature card is put in graveyard from anywhere this turn, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, deals 1 damage to any target. So yeah, go wide with this. You're going to be taking creatures out quite a bit. Next up, Harvester of Souls. This can be huge as well. Yet another demon, so protected from your commander. A 5/5 demon with Death Touch for 6 mana in black. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. That counts anyone's non-token creature, so again, literally, if you're flipping coins in the correct way, well, congratulations, you drew a bunch of cards. And by flipping them, you're just getting lucky with the coin flips. You're going to be drawing a ton of cards. So again, a commander that, again, myself, as someone who typically doesn't build tribal decks, really ever, This is one that does interest me because you don't really have to go all tribal for it to be an effective and cool commander. You can just take advantage of that ETB again and again and again, flip some coins, have some random effects, and just stop the show with this one. Again, rank 947. Make sure you check it out. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.